evening. Welcome to Investigator News, and I'm your host, Elly, and my co-host or host, William, tonight for a very current event discussion tonight. There's a lot of stuff going on around the globe with wars, or I should say, rumors of wars. And to start off with tonight, though, there's a China is has a rocket fixing to crash next week. They say, or within the next 3 days to up to a week. And it's expected to crash on Earth, but nobody knows where exactly it's going to land. They said it's the debris. It could be strewn out. It could land in big chunks. They don't know. The 5B rocket, a Chinese rocket, launched on the 24th of July. It was left in uncontrolled orbit. And the rocket booster stage is now headed back. And what's even worse, this has happened for the third time. And me and William kind of discussed it, and he said, well, this ain't the first time. And yeah, 3 times. Parts of them have crashed back onto Earth at least twice. Um, and this is why China is so irresponsible with its consequences. And so if it launched on the 24th, um, it was from a high-end province, and it was carrying a module for the Taigong space station. And once the job was done, China left the rocket booster stage in uncontrolled orbit. And it's so this huge booster is now headed back, disoriented. It's breaking up. And how much does it weigh? Well, about 20 tons. Um, so they said the debris could be scattered all over Earth. So you might find a piece in your front yard. They said, but for the most part, it's going to be in the US, Brazil, Africa, India, Southeast Asia, and Australia. So, like I said, you could find some of these little pieces in your front yard, backyard, on your car. Wherever it lands, China doesn't know. And this is the third time it's been done, an uncontrolled orbit. And they had been warned about this before. They had one back in 2020 that crashed in West Africa, and it caused damage, a lot of damage, but no injuries. And not only that, again, in Indian Ocean, it splashed harmlessly in the waters, but it sent shock waves, and it sent very huge waves upon the near shores. So they said that they are really going again to see if the UN will do something about these China rockets, and they're failing to meet safety standards. So China is calling for their complaints. Hype is media reports that it's all political, and it's basically the United States fear mongering its own people. But according to some of these other countries, it's had pieces of these rockets land. They said this is very concerning, and that something must be done before the next time they can shoot another rocket up in space. Uh, Now, William, you said that, yeah, they've done this before. So if the UN doesn't do nothing, uh, which probably not, uh, my concern is it's only going to get worse. They're just going to shoot more of them up, or um, how many more times are they going to put stuff in space that's going to crash land on us? You know?
So the planet's mostly water. Um, the land is mostly unpopulated. Uh, the biggest chance you have of really catching debris is in your yard rather than your house. So China's probably thinking to themselves, what's the point of setting up a reentry program when the chance of striking somebody of any importance is almost zero?
Yeah.
So
they're probably looking, it does sound like a political hype, though.
Standpoint.
It does sound kind of like a political hype. When the way you're talking about it, because how China looks at it, it hasn't hurt nobody. It's one's landed in the ocean. It caused a few high waves, but it didn't hurt anybody. And they're just claiming that this political hype from the West of the United States, and it is. We are
Well,
the ones griping the worst about it.
but what they're saying is look, until somebody gets hurt, why should we do anything? And the West is saying, let's be preventative so that we never have to worry about that. They're just two different philosophies.
Yeah, well, not only that, but I don't think that the Green New Deal guys want these rockets going up. I think that is going to be their next focus is let's not send so much up into space. Um, uh, you Not to get off topic, but those Choco tacos. Now, I don't know if anybody knew it is owned by not by Klondike. It's Insline or something like that. And get this, they are big on the Green New Deal, but not only that, they're one of the biggest foundations that give to the Clintons. And they're talking about the whole cow and going to soy um, instead of milk. And so this is a big push. And I think they're trying to upset the people with these Choco Tacos. So anybody look into it though, not to get off topic on that though. Uh, but anyway, William, while we're talking about China, there's been tensions going on with the latest round of, um, I'm not going to say attacks, I'm going to say intimidation by China, not only to Taiwan, and they were going Taiwan and Japan for a while. Well, it seems like they've changed directions. And what they're doing is they're now um, uh, going in as far as the Air Force or the skies go, they are going into out of international or China space into not only Australia but into Taiwan and Philippines. They're also trying to intimidate the Australian pilots as well as um, now on the ground. They're starting to go after the Philippine Navy, is what I'm hearing. And so um, they say this is, and China is quoted as saying this is an increased provocation against the United States that are lawfully operating in the South China region, and clearly calling out Beijing and its increased aggression. And this came from the Deputy Assistant Secretary for East Asia. And the U.S. State Department has now said that there's an upward trend of China's provocations against the claimants of the South China Seas. So it's not just it's Japan, it's Taiwan. Now they have added the Philippines, Australia, but not only that, but now there seem to be encircling Guam. And so they're thinking Guam could be maybe the next one. Now, I'd always heard it was Australia, William, but it seems that they're really putting a lot of their Navy um, going out of international waters into the space of Guam that they shouldn't be. And they're not going after the fishermen. This is the one thing I wanted to make sure of. They're not going after the fish like they were. They're just out and out with their battleships. And they've had, in the past month, they have had three separate occasions where incidents have taken place within the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines. And China claims that it's all part of their C2. It's ours too, type of thing. As Jung Pak has these claims, and he says they are allowed to be expansive and that it is not unlawful, and that China's actions strengthens claims that contribute to the stability of the region. But it also undermines maritime orders in the region. So, William, you want to add anything before I go on with this, or you want me just to finish it up?
So when China's doing these sort of things, one of our allies uh, can request that we go in and seize those ships and return sailors back to their home countries, and then put those ships someplace where they can't be used. So China's, by sailing into protected waters, can be putting themselves in jeopardy that way of having United States, be able to look at their technology and whatnot. Doesn't sound like a bright idea to me.
Yeah. Now, interesting enough, William, this is something that Young Park, um, let's see, who was he? Uh, he is uh, mm, anyway. He was a part of the State Department over there. Well, he said that um, the call between Biden and Jinping talks are expected to focus on ways that contain growing tensions between the two sides, especially over Taiwan. And he says he has no qualm about that. He said, but what people need to understand further is this is a very complicated relationship with China, and adding that Washington was um, they're only trying to uh, the Biden administration. I know you don't like to talk about the president, but this is the Department of Defense and the Pentagon. Is what they have been working out with is only the relationship between China and Taiwan and us and Taiwan, and how not to go to war over Taiwan. He said what they're leaving out, though, is they're not trying to counter all of Beijing's actions in the Southeast Asia. So China feels that with them not really reacting to all of these different excursions and violations, it's given China the approval that it's okay that they go ahead and maybe start a takeover of these islands. Now, this was, like I said, this was very interesting to me. And I went and I looked it up. I was started investigating it, and I realized that, yeah, he is right. He is right. Not one time has the United States told the CCP, don't do that. Don't go after Australia. Don't go after the Philippines. Don't go after what was it? What was the new one they just took? The Easter Islands, was it? So this is
Sekakus.
Yeah. So, so isn't this an interesting point for a strategy of the United States of, is it a strategy to saying we're not going to bug you over here, but you're not going to take Taiwan? To me, we would want to protect the whole South Asian seas. What do you
So
think
what
on that?
China's involving, and I'm not going to talk about the Biden administration,
Right.
but what China
This
is
was,
doing
well,
is
but
trying.
like I said, though, William, this wasn't not, cut Biden, because Biden is only there to talk to him about Taiwan. This is beside it. This is the Pentagon and the Department of Defense working
Right.
with um, those military ambassadors and generals with the CCP uh, military on these issues. So cut Biden out of this. This is just a strategic move with our military, with their military leaders. And I think the
Correct.
strategics that they're doing is kind of odd, because you would think that we would be pulling the Carl Vinson, and they're saying, hey, we're big, we're bad, we're strong, and you can get the heck out of, get the heck out of the Philippines. That's how I feel, though.
So China's trying to be any and every place the United States isn't at any period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why they're doing that is psychological. They're trying to normalize bad behavior in the Indo-Pacific region. Once they do that, then they can normalize the bad behavior anywhere in the world. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is all about normalizing bad behavior and getting people who are in democratic states to not react to their bad behavior.
Yeah, and then they go on to talk about the Australian aircraft, adding they're going and intercepting a lot of the Australian planes now. It used to be right around the Navy, but now they've moved from naval to um, uh, Australian aircraft. Um, and Now, when China has come forward and they were asked about this, they said that this is no longer anything on marine research, energy exploration, or any of that, but that's who they're also going after. So not only are they going after the Australian uh, Air Force, but they are going after these marine research and energy explorations. And they say this is on quite a few different occasions. They'll go after the Air Force, then a day or two later, they're going after the exploration people. They're going after the fishermen. So instead of swarming over there with a bunch of fishing vessels with the battleship in between, they're just abruptly doing this to Australia. And they said this has increased over the past few weeks. And so it seems,
So
go ahead.
Australia is just flying the aircraft in international space. So according to the United Nations conventions, any emanation electromagnetic that is outside their territorial waters is free to be gathered. They have the right to do that to us. We have the right to do that to them. That's what these aircraft do. We want to know what's going on within their country, what they're doing, what they're thinking, whatnot. And they don't want that anymore. They want to change the rules-based system. Mm-hmm. And it bothers them that we can gather that electronic information that far out, even though they can do the same to us. It's always, with the Chinese, it's always, well, with us it's a provocation, but with you it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And you can't allow them to do that. You have to draw a psychological line and say, well, we're going to gather that anyway. If you want to do what you're going to do it. We'll be at war.
Yeah.
You can't negotiate with terrorists, and that's what the Chinese military is starting to behave like.
Yeah. Now this could be another strategic move on China to further move out and strengthen, and move out and strengthen, and move out and strengthen, like we've been seeing them. Like they built the islands up, then they put the military out there and they strengthened it up. To me, this seems like just another move of, they seemed that they could do the flyovers, real low flyovers in Taiwan, and they got away with it. Nothing was really done. And then they did it to Japan. Now they're doing it over by the Philippines, and now they're starting into Australia. To me, they're pushing that boundary mark, not just with the South China Seas, but they're moving further out. Could I be right on that? I mean, that's just my opinion.
They'll continue to do so until they start, getting surface-to-air missiles shot at them, other aircraft trying to drop their aircraft in those spaces where they come into other nations' exclusionary zones. Until you stop them, they'll continue it, and that's what happens with bullies. Is you have to draw a line, and then if they cross it, let them know.
Yeah. And then the new alliances that China has been gathering. That's the other thing that I've noticed that the news really isn't talking about. And it bugs me because they're getting more and more allies. I always thought it was just China and maybe Russia together, and then maybe North Korea might chime in if we happen to actually go into World War III. But, I'm finding out that there's this CPEC, and it's new alliances that China has been bringing together. It's always been a China-Pakistan economic corridor. And but what's serious about the newest developments is concern for India. And so China, Pakistan, also bringing in Afghanistan in on this. Um, uh, and not only that, but me and William talked about it. Now we got Iran, we got Russia. They're pulling their alliances together. But what's the big concern right now is for India. And if they take in Pakistan, what I want you guys to understand is if China brings in more of Pakistan and to bring in definitely Afghanistan, well, they're going to start leaving, um, not really leaving. The concerns for India is going to be more aggressive. Now, I've always told you about the India China conflict at their borders where they send the troops in and all the military stuff, and they even battle all the way to punching each other out on that border. Well, the thing is it's going to increase. And the other thing that's a big concern is uh, if Russia it prolongs this war with Ukraine, it's less money that the United States and NATO has to send to India. So really, there is a big concern right now. And this China-Pakistan CPEC, uh, China says they realize this. And as long as Russia can drag this war out with Ukraine, they're going to be able to overtake India a lot quicker than if the war is ended suddenly. Have you heard about this, William? This is, I mean,
Yeah, so it's not quite that simple because both India and Pakistan, though they share a border with each other, both are nuclear states.
mm-hmm.
So you don't just jump a border into India from Pakistan without some really bad repercussions. The
Mm-hmm.
bad part about that is if India can't protect itself in any other way, they may use the bomb, and then we have a precursor, if you will, beginning of that sort of use for protection. And we don't want to go there. And so that's the real crux is, will we have enough conventional to military hardware and whatnot to help India secure its border with Pakistan? It doesn't really have to with China so much because that's just a mountain range. It's almost impassable anyway.
Yeah. Well, when you add
ground between Pakistan and India is just a fence. So keeping that area from being crossed by a hostile force is a big deal.
mm-hmm.
And India is going to protect itself even if Pakistan is acting on the orders of China.
Mm-hmm. See, and the other thing that concerns me with this, that talks about um, in this article, is that now the views are, according to some of the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Pakistan, is what they have discussed is now that they're discussing humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan. In return, Afghanistan would be joining the CPEC. And what it would do is this would be possible ground forces for China if we happen to go to war. And so we go from them maybe taking India, which you said no isn't going to happen. And then the article switches over to what they're finding out is if they can build Afghanistan back up, that meaning China, Pakistan, and Russia, if they can build Afghanistan back up and be able to, even the mercenaries that I've talked about, and we'll probably even go further into that, if they could train them, this would be the perfect ground troops to be able to pull from Afghanistan and using ISIS and the Taliban and Al Qaeda. Now, William, would that be something that China would really be investing in? Is Afghanistan? Um, and you mentioned Chechens earlier too. Um, that they could be
So,
investing in this for ground troops.
so these areas are tribal, um, and anytime you have a tribal society, it's easier to recruit people, and there's no strong central government to stop it. So, yeah,
Yep,
Afghanistan is a perfect breeding place for terrorists or
in
for
the Taliban. Yeah,
trained insurgents to come out of, especially if China provides the equipment and food and training. So you can see that would happen. But as far as governance goes, Afghanistan's almost completely ungovernable.
yeah, and get this. This um, is a Taliban spokesperson, Zabullah Mujahid, and he said he's quoting that the CPEC is a useful project, and we look forward to implementing Afghanistan's part of the project. So they're keen on to be on board within less than a year, closer to the end of the year. And achieving this, Pakistan and China want to extend the CPEC to Afghanistan. How exactly what will they do and what they will do? Well, guess get this, William. This is what we talked about: the Belt and Road Initiative. Well, they're going to do that, and they're going to build a motorway, and this will be a foundation and a payment for them getting as much of their ground army military as they can. And it'll be
So,
like they say a Peshawar with Kabul. Um,
yeah, so I'm glad to see, this is going to sound weird, I'm glad to see China and Pakistan investing themselves in Afghanistan. Nobody has ever gone into Afghanistan and came out financially better. Um,
it's true.
if if the Chinese and Pakistanis and Iranians want to go into Afghanistan, I say more power to them because it just makes our work a whole lot easier.
You know how I see it's like, how long did we deal with Afghanistan? And it's like, okay, now China's going to go in and try to be nice. Well, they don't play nice. They get what they want. They get quite a bit, and they put out very little. But at the same time, you've got um, uh, this Belt and Road Initiative, and we know what happens with that. China's going to move in, and they're going to start taking over different places. So maybe
Well,
China
that's great
is
because
what Afghanistan needs, you know?
China will just find out what it means to have highway robbers.
Well,
Uh,
or
uh,
they're going to squash them. I mean, it's going to be either way. Either, China's going to get ripped off, or, I mean, putting it, and lingo that people understand. Either they're going to get ripped off, or they're going to go in there and they're going to start a huge war and create havoc in Afghanistan, which is just another war for Afghanistan. I don't think those people uh, in that part of the country or on the globe understand that they don't need to be at war all the time, but they are. And it's all about,
so
like you said, highway
Pakistan's
robbery. So,
Pakistan, or I'm sorry, Afghanistan's a landlocked country. Um, it has never not been at war with its direct neighbors. I'm talking tribally, let alone the whole state. It's ungovernable. It is the absolute most corrupt place on earth. And unless you have a family connection, nothing happens smoothly. And if China thinks they're going to go in and be the saviors or whatever of Afghanistan, and they think the Chinese are, what's the word to use? Um, don't like people unlike themselves. in an area, they haven't even met the Afghanis. Afghanis only like Afghanis.
Yeah. Well, and then so really, India's response to all this is that um, any such action that infringes on India's territory integrity, they firmly oppose. And they say project with the so-called CPEC, which are in Indian territory, is illegally occupied by Pakistan, which activities are illegal and illegitimate and unacceptable. So India has registered its own objection, but the Afghanistan it's just a challenge to them, they say. And so it's only set to rise for a new, maybe like you said, it might cause what, a war with Afghanistan, or will it be Pakistan with India? Because China, we already know, has that little skirmish, and it's not really going anywhere. But this could set up for a whole new war over there with Afghanistan right in the middle of it again, you know? And I think
So
that's what India is
Afghanistan
saying.
would be more likely to go to war with China and Iran, and Pakistan is just a convenient border for them.
So, anyway, so you were telling me earlier about the Taiwan offers vacations. And to me, I'm thinking in the middle of war, and I mean, you were talking about it, and the U.S. and the Taiwan exercises that are going on over there too. Uh, you want to tell the viewers a little bit about this?
So the United States, Taiwan, other powers in the area of like mind are doing live fire training with Taiwan. So Taiwan isn't in shock if forbid they suddenly get Chinese troops landing on their shore. They'll be able to function and deal with it quickly. Military training is perishable. It's like salad. You can only keep it in the refrigerator for so long. Well, skill sets are that way too on the battlefield, and so you have to practice them to keep them up to date. So that's what they're doing. The other thing that's going on is Taiwan is trying to closen ties with Japan and other like-minded nations, and they've set aside $5 billion to help those who want to come to Taiwan and enjoy the sun and their vacation areas, and they're helping them out up to the tune of a third of their vacation costs. And so there's a lot of Japanese coming to Taiwan right now to enjoy the warm waters, and I'm not sure, but Americans might be welcome as well.
Mm-hmm. And about the Taiwan and U.S. exercises going on.
Yeah, so those are live fire exercises. They're not ocean exercises, they're ground exercises. So, like how their army functions, how they would protect a port, getting used to having bombs dropped around them, grenades, live fire practice with their rifles, all the things that you have to do, including logistics, medical, the whole shoot match, so that Taiwan's not under some military shock if there's some real incursion that happens in Taiwan. It's really a good thing to do. Plus, it makes it so that Taiwan, if we need their help for whatever reason, know how to act and function within our military, as well as our military being able to function and act within theirs. So it's a great way of maintaining bilateral communications, especially in the military chain of commands, so that everybody knows who their counter partner is in the other nation. They can quickly get help if they need it. They feel overwhelmed. Get good advice in a timely manner, and be able to trust it.
Yeah. Now, kind of moving on, I found this very interesting. I think I did this on my show yesterday about the mercenaries from China. Now, come to find out, there's a little bit more to it I've been able to uncover today. And it's the millionaires and billionaires from all over the world, the most powerful business people, are needing more and more protection. And they said one of their biggest customers come out of the United States with politicians and the millionaires. And they're finding that with these Chinese military or Chinese police over there, that they'll go after their own people. It don't matter. They're there to do the job. And if they're told to go collecting, they collect. And what they are doing, China says this is big business over there. And not only that, but they are looking at a lot of millionaires and billionaires from all over the globe that are now investing in these companies. And it's kind of like Blackwater. And these are mercenaries for hire. And not only is the United States training them, but it's now starting to find out, so is the UK. And they also have been working with some terrorists over in, they say, not only in a part of Asia, but all the way into the Middle East. And so they are training these military and police from China, the CCP, to come and do security work. Or they're also using, China's also using them because when their Belt and Road Initiative have went out, they're being attacked too. So it's further security. So they are using these mercenaries, they say, for private security. And they're getting into like the bodyguard business of it all. But the thing is they're being fed a lot of money from the United States politicians on this. And I believe this is where they're going to start getting their bodyguards and their their own secret service almost. It even allows companies to use their own firearms, their own weapons of choice. This is what kind of scares me, William, is because it's went beyond just us training these guys. It's gone to the point where of like it being close to like what Blackwater is. And Blackwater, what I'm talking about, is the military that we hired to come in and protect our military and also do different jobs for the military. So go ahead, William, on this.
So what a mercenary is somebody who has left the military. So now they're just a civilian with military skills, and they're marketing that. The problem with mercenaries is they're extraterritorial, meaning they'll go anywhere on the globe for the dollar, and Chinese will do that just as much. And if you're involved in some sort of corruption, you're not going to want somebody that questions you based on their morals that a Western individual might have, and so they may want to have a Chinese mercenary. Well, people get out of the military in China just like they get out of the military in the United States when their time is up, and they may want to market those skills. And so they've always been out there. This is not something new. Different intelligence agencies will buy them at different periods of time and use them.
Yes.
So it's not something to be terrified of, but it's something that state departments and militaries have to manage, because you don't want too many of them running around at any one time in any one place.
The thing is, William, they, like you said, they're not part of the military or police in China anymore. What it does is they have to abide by local host countries and their laws, but they don't always do that. And sometimes it really comes back to bite them, because what happens is they start breaking a few of the local laws. And so their military and their police force go after them. Now, you
So,
said it's been going on a long time. Well, yeah, because it took Cambodia 2 years to ban foreign security guards, and it took them 2 years, and they were finally able to do it in 2019. So that tells you that these, like you said, they've been around a while. This isn't nothing new. Um,
right. So they're called soldiers of fortunes. We call them mercs. Um, the thing is you want to manage them. You don't want to have too many in any one place at any one time. The bad thing about being a merc is you don't have a state sponsor. So whatever state you're in could capture you at any time, call you a spy, and summarily execute you. So you
yes.
don't have any state protection.
And
But if you're
go ahead.
in the military with the uniform, you've got identification, you've got dog tags, you've got whatnot. You're an enemy combatant, and when the war's over, the two sides will exchange prisoners. But that doesn't happen with mercs. Mercs, a lot of time when they go in, they take the big dollars because it might be a one-way trip.
Oh yeah, it could be. And like you said, we've got black water that's been happening for decades, and these mercenaries that go way back decades. Also, it's not. This is nothing new. Uh, but now, what we're seeing is the newest is that the politicians and the millionaires, billionaires are starting to hire these for personal security. And see what they didn't, what this article really got dabbled into was the fact that they think that they're going to be like they are in um, China, and it's getting a lot of these CEOs and these political, even ambassadors, in trouble, not only here in the United States but elsewhere, because they're not abiding by the laws, and they're taking orders from this millionaire that wants X things done, and even to the point where they're saying, "Well, I need this person killed." Well, they're getting caught up in that, and this is where they said it's coming back to bite them, because now um, and it makes me wonder about the Clintons, if maybe they use some of these little mercenaries to do some dirty work.
Dollars, so that the mercs that are protecting you, one moment, if they get a bigger, better deal, they'll capture you just as well, even though you originally hired them, package you up and ship you off to the highest bidder. So it's a ruthless game.
Yeah, talk about turning around and biting you on the buns. Yeah, that'll definitely bite you on the buns and elsewhere. See, they don't think about that. I really do think a lot of these millionaires or billionaires are these elite. I really think some of them are pretty stupid because they are getting in trouble. And when you look at, it's not really the tribunal part of it's. I guess under the UN, where they're prosecuting different people. Every once in a while on a list, you could see where there is someone like, and I can't say George Soros, but someone like him that big that has used this group to go after somebody. And they got caught doing it in the long run, and it came back to bite them. They're not going to get in very much trouble because the elites never do. But so so Chinese, what they want to do now is they want to pass a law that that 50%, 51% can be state owned, but the other 49% is going to be by their charge, for only the countries that they have their own mercenaries put into. So yeah, I had to giggle on this, and it was like, oh, well, so you guys are a little bit above the law to where you want to go and hurt people and be able to do the stuff we're talking about and not get in trouble for it. And so really, it does get pretty deep on the new, they call it the new mercenaries of China, is how they put this.
There's still a lot of unintended consequences. Mercs can do things that stirs things up, that start a battle that turns into major battlefield fight and ends up in a war.
Yeah.
China thinks that they can control mercs. China can't control them. Nobody can control a merc. They're walking killing machines.
Yeah, they sure are. And they said even they had about 10 years ago, they had a guy. Um, he's they said he's the leader of the 14th K Triad, which I don't know what that is. It's a Chinese organized crime group that went through this, and he had done some stuff for China early about 2000. I'm going to say 2013 or so, uh, and his his nickname is Broken Tooth, they say. But he was supposed to spend 14 years in prison. But after about 4 years, they went ahead and they wanted to say that he reinvented himself. And they made him an upstanding person, or we're going to. Well, lo and behold, it was basically he is one of the ones that's in charge of the Belt and Road Initiative and the security mercenaries that go along with their crews. So, and this is, and get this is all the way back just after 2010. So, but we know that we were using it during Desert Storm and even before then, probably even back into Vietnam, when these mercenaries.
Mercs corrupt military organizations. They corrupt intelligence organizations. They corrupt financial organizations over time. You can use them, but it's a double-sided sword, and you better know what you're getting into, because they can demand more than you can pay.
Yeah, and we only got just a little bit of time left, and I did want to touch on Pelosi's visit. And William said she's probably not going to go. The thing is, folks, is you're seeing this tit tat back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it's because the United States is in a position that Nancy Pelosi said she was going to go. Well, she was supposed to go about a year ago and didn't go. Then it was supposed to be a few months ago and she didn't go. And then now we have threats from China. And I don't want everyone to get so like, oh, this is it. This is World War III. This is something big is going to happen. Maybe not. But what I want to say is the United States can't back down. If they back down to China, it's going to show a weakness that could start a war. And so at a certain point, we have to stand up to China and say that, yes, Nancy Pelosi is going to go over there and she's going to talk with the Taiwanese. I believe it's only over the microchips and solar panels. I believe that's all this is. She's a very harsh businesswoman for the United States. She's not foreign policy, so she does more business than it would be a foreign policy thing. But I think what they want to do is they just want to put this off because it's not showing a weakness to Jinping. I believe it's the wrong time for her to go and do business. Now, William, you told me earlier that she wasn't going.
Well, we'd heard from the Department of Defense and the state that chances are she wasn't going to go right now because the president didn't feel it was the most opportune time. But you can pretty much assume it's going to happen. It's just when it's going to happen or whether we let China know that Nancy Pelosi was out getting a suntan on the beach on one of the islands. It doesn't have to be a state issue. China is going to flex its muscle anywhere it can, and
yep.
If we don't react to it and say no, then it'll create a vacuum that they'll try to fill. And so what they're trying to do is get create as many vacuums as they can so that they can fill them as quickly as they can, because they're just after world domination. We're not that. The United States never been after domination. The United States has only ever been about rules-based order and free trade and being able to move unmolested on the seas and in the air, as long as you're in international airspace. So Americans see China as acting the same way as the United States acts. And though it looks like we act much the same, we're acting for very different reasons. And we have to take that into account and understand that China will be the CCP. I'm not talking about the Chinese people particularly. I'm talking about the CCP. Will be bullies at any opportunity they have the chance to create or find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And I did want to touch into what we see going on over in Ukraine. Now, a few weeks ago, we were looking at a plane that had crashed, and they said after it had crashed that people were having symptoms like a chemical type of warfare. And now this isn't the first time that it's been accused for both sides. Before it was the biolabs, and now the chemical is different. Now, a few months ago, they accused Russia of these biolabs, but then Russia went and proved itself at the UN courts. Now that this chemical warfare now is being brought up, Russia had went and fully disclosed everything that they had and what they have been using, but never. They were able to show that they have never really used it during wartime. Now, William, what was it you said that Russia had for chemical?
So Russia has the capacity to use chemical warfare. The United States got out of the business. We burned up our stockpiles and neutralized them. But Russia has them if they want to use them. But they may not even be using them, Ellie, because
no, I don't think so.
People don't recognize that a lot of our military aircraft, when they crash, they have toxic substances on board. So in the event of emergency, they can control their airplanes when the engines go out.
Yeah.
And some of that stuff is very lethal. I mean, you have to bathe the aircraft when it comes back to the base in Clorox and neutralize it just so the pilot can get out of the airplane. And if you run into a crash site right after a plane's crash, you can get sick.
Oh yeah.
So it may be they're using bombs with it in, but it may just be aircraft with the toxic rocket motors and stuff in the ejection seats and whatnot. You can make people sick fast with that stuff, especially if it's been burning.
Yeah. So we have known this has been going back and forth since February, this biolabs, and now it's moved over to the chemical now part of it. And so I got a hold of my reporters over there in Kyiv. And I told them, I said, what is it with these chemicals now? And what do you know about what either Ukraine or Russia would have with these a chemical warfare? Because and it's starting to come back out in the news again. And I said, I kind of want to nip this in the bud, because I'm tired of first it's biolabs and then it's a chemical warfare. And now we had this plane crash. And I believe that it's a lot of propaganda that's trying to lead people into being very scared of us going into a chemical warfare. And even NATO saying it's likely. So what they've been able to dig up for me is you have to almost go back to World War I. And one of the biggest producers of it was mustard. Everybody has heard of mustard gas. And Germany was one of the biggest producers back then. And then it had died down a little bit. And then during World War II, they really amped it up. They really amped up the productions, where hundreds and thousands of mustard gas containers were created. And they used some during the World War II. But the problem is the remainder that was left. And now, William is right. We did burn up all of ours. The problem is, and this is even what you guys know of Princess Diana going over and destroying the mines. Well, it's the same thing that she was also trying to get a roll on this mustard gas. And this is something I didn't know about her, but it's something my reporters have been able to dig up. And what we've been able to find out, hold on, Will, is that there are hundreds and thousands of these canisters all throughout Germany. Poland has got one of the biggest supplies. The problem is the German government has now said it's up to the individual states or countries to do away with their stockpiles. Well, Poland is missing about 20 to 70,000 canisters that have disappeared in the last 15 years. Well, they have been able to trace it to the Azov battalion. And I don't like to accuse people of stuff, but it is coming out. And this is one thing that Zelensky is very upset about. I don't think Zelensky knew about these containers, but the Azov battalion does. And when it came down to not only the biological, but the chemical, the Azov army was the one that accused Russia of having it. And so the reporters over there that are the independent reporters are now saying if anyone is going to do a chemical attack, it wouldn't be Zelensky's army. It would be the Azov battalion part of Zelensky's army. And they really do not believe that Russia would gas its own people. And I've looked back, and it's never been anything that Russia would ever do is gas its own people. So go ahead, William.
So that's everything you just said was true. When the Soviet Union dissolved 30 years ago, what we had was an arsenal without a nation. And all these new nations gathered the stockpiles they could within their territory that they could gather. But what people don't realize is individuals squirreled away some of those containers. They knew what to do with them. And so individuals can start an escalation in a battlefield area just because they have access to one of these containers.
Mm-hmm. And there's no control over them.
The state doesn't know about. And we have to keep that in mind and remember it's a he said, she said type situation. Mm-hmm. But it's also the kids are playing with them out on the playground as well. So, mm-hmm. War is a messy, messy machine.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they were. I watched a special the other night just because I was kind of looking into this and seeing what I could send my reporters to give them an idea of what I was looking for, and they were very, very shocked that, like you said, these canisters are just underground in sandboxes and playgrounds, and they just barely dig it up, and they've got the cap that's loose, which means when did the cap come off? Did it come off in 1943 or 4, or did it come off recently? And they are having a serious rise in cancer. That's why they're trying to dig it up. But what really got me, William, was they're leaving it up to individual communities to dispose of them now. I don't think this is what the country did. This is what they made. And to say, okay, well, no, I'm just going to leave it up to the small community of, over here, they have to get rid of it. They have to pay for it when they don't have the money to do it. And
They don't have the expertise to
so,
deal with it either.
and they don't have the
This is something only a
security.
major state can get rid of.
Right, and they don't have the security to watch to see. There are unsavory characters that are going to go dig the stuff up because it's active. They're actually cutting it open, and they pull out these bottles, and these bottles are full of gas, and they have tested it in labs, and they are just as deadly today as it was when they were made. They've been sealed very well and put underground, and they can only do so much at a time. And that's why they're saying that they're going to leave it up to these smaller states. Well, the problem that the states are having is um, uh, thieves, I guess thieves, are coming in and they're taking as much as they want, and there's nothing they could do to stop them. The only thing they're hoping for is to catch them on the border, but that's not always the case. And it is documented that quite a few over there around Germany, and even as far as Iran and Iraq, has even went over and got some because they know where it's at. It's a mustard gas haven um, for terrorists, basically. If they want to get it, it's already made and it's just sitting there waiting because they pull them out and they stack them, and then they have to process. And the one guy that says he's processing them for the government says even he says I'm 40 years old, and if he worked for another 20, 30 years, there's still 50 to 80 years of every day getting rid of these canisters it'll take to totally get rid of the very last one. It'll take 80 years. That's how many there is. And so this is very suspicious, I think. And Germany has never mentioned this to any of us, nor is it in their news. You have to really dig, dig, dig to get it. Um, but when you start looking into what the history of chemical warfare, then you start seeing what Germany has done. And Germany did make mustard gas for most of the world. They were number one for processing and making these canisters. Uh,
So Germany manufactured it, but so did the Soviet Union. So is China right now.
mm,
It's the poor man's nuke, and it's a weapon of mass destruction, and it creates fear in an opposing army.
mm-hmm.
So it has a value. The problem is money talks, and sometimes that stuff walks.
Mm-hmm. No, the thing is they said even if how you would know that if this is some of the older ones is it's not going to kill you. They said it's going to irritate the eyes, and it's not the blinding effect like it had back in the 40s, but it will irritate the eyes, blister the eyes and the skin, and the your air passages, your throat. Uh, but it's not going to be to the extreme. It's just more of a horrible irritant, but it is cancer causing. Um, so it's less than what it was. And they said so it can be very well disguised as another type of chemical warfare. So they're trying to get the word out now so people understand that if you have the same symptoms as mustard gas, but not as bad, it could be that this is coming from these stolen canisters. Um,
Yeah, you need to get to the hospital so they can give you what treatment they can. It does damage as it does.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But at least that way you know what to make an exclusionary area so you don't have other troops going into that area.
Yeah. So, William,
That's about as
do
good
you
as
have
you get.
any last words, anything for tonight to add as we close up?
So I think folks are starting to understand better and better that war's a really, really messy machine. When states get engaged in it, wars tend to control the leaders rather than the leaders control wars. And so what you're seeing is not out of the realm of normalcy. It is just what war has always been, and you haven't been exposed to it. So don't be terrified when you hear these things. Some of it's propaganda, some of it's real, some of it's scary, some of it's benign, but you have to realize this is just the way the world has worked and always will work, as long as people are willing to fight each other.
Mm. What I have to say is, um, looking at wars from World War One, that I was taught on, that my grandfather would have fought in, till today. There's never been a real war in the United States. It's always been elsewhere. It's always other countries. We have been involved in it, but we've never had war come to our land or came to the United States, and we've never fought one here. And there's a reason for that, because we're number one. This is a very strong nation, and we have been able to hold off superpowers from around the globe. And I believe we're still like that today, even though you may think that we're in a weakened state, weakened military state. I still think we're number one with a bullet. And the allies that we have, I believe that um, even if China were to make a threat, or Russia over here on our own soil, we're prepared, we're ready. And I don't think they'll do it. I think they will fight us in a country like Taiwan, Guam, not even as big as Australia, because there's too many sides and there's too much land. And they're finding that out with Ukraine, that it's not feasible to fight, or even Afghanistan and even Iraq. And William, I'll even let you respond to me after I'm done, that these are too big of a landmass. It's easier to fight in a smaller space, to where one side can conquer the other very quickly and then move on. Because we know that we have those elite that just want to make their money off war. And it's not the way to be, but that's the way it's always been, and that's part of our history. But I am not worried that we will have Russia or China come and fight us on our own soil. I believe it'll stay in Taiwan, or it'll be another smaller country in which they want to take over. Uh, so I wanted to add that, so to kind of ease your mind that we know they're around us. We're around them too. We're they've got naval and military and air force, and they're all the way around the United States, and they've got their missiles pointed at us. But we've got the same thing going at them too. So realize that we're ready, and the United States military there is ready as ever, and we only get better every day. So go ahead, William, if you want to say anything to what I just said. Unless you're done for the night.
So I'd like to say that I'm thankful that you give me the opportunity to talk here a little bit and dispel some fears, and let people know that they're in a lot more control of their lives than the major news outlets would have them feel that they are. And go ahead and live your lives. Don't stop what you're doing because of some fear created someplace else in the world. If it does come here, it would have came anyway, so go ahead and live your lives, and we'll deal with it if it comes, but chances are greatly that it won't.
Yeah. Well, Mary can almost attest to it. She sends me a text saying, you know what, the ground's rumbling. They've got airplanes taking off from the airfield here, and it's fierce. And Mary, all I have to say is be glad, feel protected, because they are practicing and they are practicing and they are ready and they're showing their might to the rest of us. That you know what, we're going to rumble the ground, and when they come, we're going to rumble their heads, and we're ready for them. So
the United States, if it needs to, can reach out anywhere in the world at any time and touch someone. So don't mess with the United States unless you want to have a really bad day.
That's it. So with that, everyone, please subscribe and share tonight's show. I think it was very informative on current events tonight. We have been getting strong into individual ideas of war, but I really, with me being sick for a week or two, I wanted to wrap up the current events on what's going on to let you know what you're not hearing on the news, folks. About what's going on in the South China Seas, and even put to rest about the chemical warfare that's happening, and give you more of an idea of who has what, and then let you decide on who it is, because it's going to be a he said, she said, but it's always been Russia that runs to the UN first, and they have put forth some pretty strong evidence on their behalf. So with that, please subscribe, and we enjoy you watching our show, and so share it with family and friends, and we appreciate all the viewers over in Facebook. So with that, folks, I will see you in the morning for the morning weather show and news, and then of course we'll see William back next Wednesday, and maybe we'll work on something really good for what's going on over in China, as China is now going country to country to country with Belt and Road Initiative and with the mercenaries. William, thanks again for being here tonight.
Thank you.
So, all right. We will see everyone tomorrow morning, and have a nice evening, and go watch a great movie and get some popcorn. And don't let the War of the Worlds, unless you want to watch War of the Worlds tonight, or a great, really good war movie. I can't think of any From Here to Eternity, Tora. There's some good ones out there that you could watch if you'd like to keep the military theme going for the night. So with that, folks, we will see you in the morning, and God bless. Bye-bye, folks. Okay, William, there we go.
Well, good night.
All right, and you get better.
Okay.
All right.